to today's Bonner Institute webinar. I'm going to share my screen and introduce the topic that obviously you have signed up for. As you see, our topic today is managing hybrid human AI relations in the workplace. And today, I, John Barker, and James DeGaspé Bonnar. James, by the way, is the CEO and founder of the Bonner Institute for Purposeful Leadership. And to ground us in a fundamental value proposition of the Institute, I've invited James to walk us through some definitions and principles, specifically the definition of purposeful leadership. James, can you discuss the fundamental value proposition of purposeful leadership that will ground our discussion today?
Thanks very much for this, John. Perhaps I'll just share with you a little bit about our history, and then I'll move into the grounding. So the Bonner Institute was founded in 2014, and we're a strategic advisory firm that partners with high-growth companies to optimize board and executive talent through purpose. There's a particular emphasis to what we do, though, and that really is AI. So we devote an awful lot of our time and our energies, especially with John, on the AI component. I would like to begin by asking you to imagine your organization as having both your current employees, who are human, and AI agents that can autonomously plan, decide, and act alongside human professionals. Businesses are increasingly integrating AI agents, agentic AI, and multi-agent systems into their workflows. This integration represents a new generation of corporate change, indeed, of corporate transformation. Agentic AI is transforming individual jobs, sometimes fully or partially replacing humans. It can also lead to the creation of new jobs. Agentic AI is transforming how teams collaborate, make decisions, and deliver values. AI agents have the potential to act as colleagues, managers, and indeed as supervisors. AI agents have the potential to lead to a reimagining of the workforce, including the formation of digital teams that are interacting with human ones. This poses huge challenges for companies that must successfully manage the transition. John will discuss shortly the crucial role that HR must play in successfully managing change. For example, reskilling human employees. A level 1 support engineer may now be called upon to become a prompt engineer. And HR must be able to identify, at least to its best abilities, that what those new jobs may look like in 3 years. Many employees, especially the most tenured ones, are fearful of living in uncertainty and losing their wages and being without a home. Today's sessions delve into the practical realities and strategic implications of developing agentic AI systems alongside human professionals. Before passing the baton to John, I will share how we at the Bonner Institute define leadership, and more precisely, purposeful leadership. We define purposeful leadership as an ethical choice that principal leaders make to achieve something greater than themselves and the companies they lead. We identify 6 attributes of purposeful leadership. A purposeful leader is curious and authentic and conscious. With high emotional intelligence, he or she needs to be aware, have self-knowledge, and importantly, to be humble. A purposeful leader needs to be flexible, adaptable, and have an anticipant mindset. The anticipant mindset is absolutely key because a leader must know that in the coming year, he or she will have to face significant crises. Which ones? Unknown. When? Not sure. What is certain, however, is there will be a crisis, and it is imperative to be able to manage that crisis, to be ready for it. A purposeful leader willingly leads from a place of values, integrity, ethics, and mindfulness. A purposeful leader has judgment, control, clarity. A purposeful leader endures and ensures that the vision of a company is aligned with the vision of stakeholders. Stakeholders want to see their values reflected in those of their company. And finally, a purposeful leader thinks long-term versus short-term. At the Bonner Institute, we empower clients on their purposeful leadership journey with highly customized, client-centric, interactive programs and services with flexible delivery models. In today's world, where technology is becoming increasingly democratized, purposeful leadership can be seen and is, in our point of view, a competitive advantage that companies should not do without. I'll speak more about our programs at the end of the webinar. And now it is with great pleasure that I ask John if he would be kind enough to introduce himself. John?
Hi, I'm John Barker. I'm a VP of AI at the Bonner Institute for Purposeful Leadership. I'm also a partner and co-founder of the CISO law firm, and the CISO law firm focuses on the needs of chief information security officers. And in both of these roles, I focus on artificial intelligence, its intersection with cybersecurity and privacy issues, as well as training programs, compliance programs for boards of directors to better enable them to fulfill their fiduciary duties. In particular, today, I wanted to focus on agentic AI. This is the hottest topic. You may or may not have seen in the past few months many announcements about the adoption of AI agents or agentic AI or multi-agent systems. I think one of the most interesting developments was when Moderna, very well known for the as one of the manufacturers of the COVID vaccine, it actually has adopted more than 3,000 individual AI agents that interact with each other. And this caused Moderna to completely rethink jobs and work and human resources. And Moderna actually merged its human resources department with its technology department, and it merged its into one individual role, the former roles of Chief Technology Officer and Chief Human Resources Officer. And Moderna now looks at the world of work as the digital workforce and the human workforce working together. And I'll be talking about some implications of that, and I'll cite some interesting studies. I first wanted to start out with definitions and examples. There's actually a lot of controversy about the definitions of AI agents, agentic AI, and multi-agent systems. There are, in the past, there actually used to be technology-focused definitions of agents. But agents today, there are a lot of people who say that the notions of AI agents, agentic AI, and multi-agent systems are actually marketing terms and no longer fully technology terms. Indeed, all I can tell you at this moment is there is controversy about whether what is an AI agent? I do believe there are AI agents. They're going to appear in spreadsheets, and the investments in them will be accounted for. But whether you think of this as a marketing term or a technology term, I wanted to go over the popular definitions. We could have gone into much greater detail. If you are interested in finding out other types of AI agents, I recommend that you visit Salesforce's website. You'll see different categories of AI agents. They're quite interesting. An AI agent is an autonomous system that senses, decides, and acts to achieve a goal. Now, in theory, it is a human being that sets a goal for an AI agent, but in multi-agent systems, you're going to have other AI agents setting goals for other AI agents. That raises some very interesting risks. Examples of AI agents that might be surprising to you is lead management, lead management functions, getting sales lead, creation of marketing literature, customer support. An autonomous vehicle can be seen as an AI agent, and then of course recommendation systems. Agentic AI, and I have to be quite blunt, I find it very difficult to distinguish between an AI agent and agentic AI, but marketers certainly do distinguish between them. So agentic AI is AI with autonomy. It exhibits goal-driven behavior. Agentic AI you will see in customer service, application development, cybersecurity, supply chain management, scientific discovery. And then multi-agent systems is where you will have distributed systems of multiple AI agents interacting with each other. Smart grids, disaster rescue. I'd also like to say cybersecurity, vehicle fleets, trading platforms, and supply chain coordination. This is a radically different work environment. I've actually led a lot of workshops about agentic AI, and I'll be leading more workshops in the future at various cybersecurity congresses because there are certainly many cybersecurity implications of managing non-human identities. But from a leadership standpoint, um, when you introduce AI agents or agentic AI into the workplace, you have change management issues with human employees. So an AI agent could become a colleague of an individual. You're going to see employees building their own agents at work. You will also see independent contractors leasing or selling agents that they have developed to their clients. You're going to see completely new business and pricing models with AI agents. There are going to be some interesting intellectual property and cybersecurity and product liability issues arising in that context. Also, you theoretically could have an AI agent replace a full-time employee or automate part of an employee's work. The same can apply for a team. And certainly, chief financial officers are going to want to automate as much as possible with AI agents in order to drive down cost and increase efficiencies. But I would like to note we actually have quite a bit of literature based on surveys and studies of the deployment of AI in the workplace. And I won't show this on the screen, but I will make some references to it. So there's an organization called Writer AI. Writer AI did a survey about the use of generative AI. And Writer AI conducted an independent research survey with an organization called Workplace Intelligence. And it came up with a very negative perspective about the adoption of AI in general in the enterprise. Uh, Writer AI surveyed 1,600 workers And those workers consisted of 800 C-suite executives and 800 employees in various sectors across the United States. And they found that of those 1,600 individuals surveyed, 72% of those companies are investing at least 1 million each year in generative AI technology. But only 1/3 of executives reported seeing a significant return on investment. And indeed, approximately one half of the executives said that the adoption of AI is literally tearing their companies apart. It's causing silos, turf battles, and disaster. They also found that some employees, because of fears of losing their jobs, were proactively sabotaging company-sponsored AI systems, deliberately uploading malicious prompts to large language models, chatbots, etc., and engaging in other activities. And indeed, more than 1/3 of the employees who were surveyed said that they are paying out of pocket for their own AI tools because the AI tools sponsored at work were inadequate, not doing a good job, and they were unhappy with it or they were resentful. That is shadow AI use. So that is the use of AI that is not formally sanctioned by the organization. A group that was not surveyed is independent contractors and providers of outsourced services. There's a risk of AI there. And shadow AI presents huge risks of privacy violations, the exposure of trade secrets, and cybersecurity issues. Now, something else interesting, in that survey, the majority of employees and 97% of the C-suite members said that if they wanted to look for a new position, they would only work for a company that has proactively adopted generative AI in the workplace. So it's sort of a mixed message. But anyway, if you're interested in that, I will put in the chat feature for this meeting today. Just if you go into chat, just one moment, I will provide a link to a magazine called Entrepreneur. And if you open that magazine article, it will give you a link to the survey. I think you'll find it quite interesting. Now, there's a different study that occurred, and this study was summarized in a Harvard Business Review article. And the article is called The Cybernetic Teammate, a
Mhm.
field experiment on generative AI reshaping teamwork and expertise. And this survey actually um, consisted, it's actually not a survey, it was a field experiment with 776 research and development professionals at Procter and Gamble, sometimes known as P&G. And this actual experiment came up with very different conclusions from those expressed in the Writer AI survey. So I just sent you the hypertext link to that paper. They now, and I believe I have hypotheses about why the results are different, and I think they can be integrated together. Um, what what Procter and Gamble found is that when generative AI was proactively used in the teams doing R&D, business people who did not have technology expertise were able to better communicate their needs to the R&D teams. Likewise, they were better able to understand the thought processes and output of the R&D teams, and vice versa. In other words, this field experiment resulted in greater collaboration among employees and breaking down of silos. So very opposite. Now, my hypotheses are the following. Number one, I do believe that Procter and Gamble has a very effective artificial intelligence governance program and a risk program. It is a mature company. It has a long history of investing in innovation. It is a global leader in research and development. So I think it's actually an unusual business. And I would like to note that the field experiment was confined to particular uses of artificial intelligence for particular functions, and that was indeed for research and development. And we do know we have enough data on the use of generative AI that it is extremely well suited for R&D. And Moderna, by the way, which of course merged its technology and human resources departments, they are very proactively under human supervision, making great use of generative AI and AI agents in research and development and clinical research, but it is under human oversight. And by the way, I will find the Wall Street Journal article that summarizes the merger of Moderna. By the way, if you follow the Bonner Institute's LinkedIn page, you will find you can see that we post 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and you will note that we cover this topic in detail. And Moderna, indeed. Is one of the more prominent users of AI agents. Now, I do want to note that agentic AI as a tool for cutting the workforce is prominent in the press. So we see several examples of companies cutting positions. There's recent press about Microsoft cutting employees. Amazon and Microsoft have cut employees in software coding, for example. And one of the issues at the Bonner Institute, why we emphasize purposeful leadership, is we're certainly not saying to never cut employees, but to think very purposefully about how you manage your workforce. Now, in our PowerPoint presentation today, we deliberately went with a very small PowerPoint presentation. We're simply using it as a discussion aid. But I would like to discuss how purposeful leadership permeates throughout the issue of human capital management and agentic AI. So when we think about the Writer AI survey, we noted that a lot of employees were unhappy with the AI that was promoted by the company. It was very low quality, and that was leading to shadow AI. One of the remedies for that in the context of purposeful leadership is AI literacy. So Article 4 of the European Union Artificial Intelligence Act actually has an AI literacy requirement. And there are ISO standards that supplement that, and I'd like to discuss that. So what is AI literacy? Well, that means there's a minimum level of AI knowledge and understanding enterprise-wide, from the board level to every level of employee in the organization, and theoretically also outside contractors, perhaps even your partners and suppliers, depending on what business you are in. And AI literacy would cover, hey, how do we define artificial intelligence at our business? What is machine learning at our business? What is trustworthy AI and responsible AI? What is our code of ethics? How do we manage and govern artificial intelligence in the workplace? I believe AI literacy goes far beyond that. And indeed, organization-wide understanding of AI is important. I would like to note that if you look at various laws, statutes, and frameworks, you will actually see slightly different variations of the definitions of AI. So it's entirely possible that technology you're using in one company is considered AI, and a company in another jurisdiction, under their legal system, it might not constitute AI in the same way. So it's very, very important to step back as a board of directors or the C-suite, and make sure that AI understanding is enterprise-wide. The board and the C-suite are actively promoting an organization-wide understanding, standardized terminology across the enterprise, and that you are using AI in alignment with your corporate mission, vision, values, and have a code of ethics. Align your organization-wide definitions of AI and associated terminology to relevant frameworks, laws, and regulations. Now, there's something else very important. Different roles within the organization, including your partners, the businesses that you outsource work to, your independent contractors, perhaps even your customers in some instances. And I'm talking about here the role appropriate understanding of AI. So in addition to that foundational level of AI literacy, organization-wide understanding of AI that everyone understands, and you have organization-wide definitions. Your research scientist in your organization and your chief financial officer and a software coder are going to use AI differently. In fact, they're probably going to use different AI systems. It's indeed possible that a salesperson or someone working in marketing will not even fully be aware they're working with AI, whereas a research scientist might be very proactively engaging with an AI agent. Also, so that means that the AI literacy requirement for different roles will need to be customized, and maybe you're going to need some very specialized definitions. If you are in a highly regulated industry, such as healthcare, financial services, perhaps you are a defense contractor to a government, you're going to have very specific regulations and laws and policies that apply to your use of AI. You might have disclosure requirements. You might indeed have customer contracts that have very specific requirements for the use of AI. Finally, it's very important to select the appropriate AI technologies that are fit for purpose. And this fitness for purpose is actually broader than merely thinking about, hey, how does AI help me achieve my task? It also has to be fit for purpose in terms of making your customers happy, fulfilling your financial goals, being in alignment with your corporate mission, vision, values, and code of ethics, and compliance with laws and regulations. If your AI can fulfill your tasks, but it's breaking the law, it's exposing your trade secrets, it's causing cyber attacks, but you don't know it, then your AI technology is not fit for purpose. In our Bonner Institute AI programs, we talk about the risk benefit analysis and the cost benefit analysis. Different types of AI have different risk levels and benefits. For example, good old-fashioned AI technologies, decision trees that have more predictable, foreseeable, controllable outcomes versus generative AI that hallucinates, and hallucinations can be beneficial, hallucinations can be very dangerous. You want to use the least risky AI that is fit for purpose and complies with laws, regulations, and your internal values. So that's an example of that cost benefit analysis. Let's take a look at the challenges and benefits. And I've given many, many presentations about these, and I just decided to make a list, but I will be going into detail. So benefits can include innovation. AI can help me enter a new market, create a new product, or make an existing product more efficient. It might help me with customer and market research to help me identify improvements to an existing product or service. I could use AI for cost reduction or a reduction in force. But I do want to note when you have bad employee morale and you have employee turnover, voluntary or involuntary as a result of AI, I'd like to dig just a little bit deeper into the risks of low employee morale in order to achieve cost reduction and efficiencies. We have to remember that AI agents, agentic AI, and generative AI require data for training purposes. And that's not just the entire internet. And by the way, the entire English language internet has already been uploaded into large language models. Your employees' decisions, your employees' activities, emails, potentially voicemails, potentially voice conversations are training material for AI. Your culture and your values are going to train AI as well. If your culture ends up being toxic, despite your stated values, mission, and ethics, your AI is going to inherit the toxic culture and it's going to exacerbate it. It's going to amplify the unhealthy components of your culture. And this is a longer term perspective about employee morale that might not affect the short-term focus of a chief financial officer, but it can certainly harm your long-term incentive plan because that toxic culture amplified through your AI that leads to violations of law, exposure of trade secrets, cyber attacks, and unsatisfied customers is going to hurt your long-term profits. Let's remember that you need human knowledge transfer to AI systems. Now, in the recent press, some employees have stated that in surveys that they have been proactively sabotaging their employers' AI systems because they're angry that they're either having to work with AI or the AI is inferior or they expect their job to be lost as a result of AI. So that's a human capital management challenge. And because you are, in other words, if you have some sort of long-term competitive advantage, and that competitive advantage has been based on specialized human knowledge, how are you going to preserve that? And if you reduce your human workforce, and then AI becomes more dependent on knowledge from the internet, not your specialized human knowledge, how are you going to maintain that special competitive advantage vis-a-vis your customers that might become your competitor, or your suppliers that might become your competitor, or simply your obsolescence? Also, employee use of shadow AI. And I would like to note employee certainly has a legal meaning, but for example, let's say that you outsource your software coding to a business outside the country, outside your country. And you have a service level agreement with that provider of software coding services. And you specifically state, here are the sanctioned AI tools that can be used by your outsource providers. Well, you don't have full control over the employee morale, and you don't always have full insight into what your outsourced providers are doing. How are you going to protect yourself from liability for shadow AI use or even sabotage by outside contractors? Another topic that is quite challenging, a little bit difficult to understand, but it's very important to talk about it. If you engage with ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Perplexity Pro or Anthropic or Claude, etc., and you ask it a question today, and you get output. You get a recommendation. It could be text, video, audio, an image, etc. Uh, and 6 months later, you ask the same question. It's highly likely you're going to get a different answer because the large language models are constantly training on new data. And the entire internet has already been ingested. So now large language models are having to train on synthetic data. And as the use of synthetic data for training purposes increases, the risk of model overfitting and underfitting and drift increases. And that means that there is the risk that the accuracy and utility of the output of generative AI decreases over time. Cybersecurity, privacy, intellectual property issues such as copyright and trade secrets, these are actually very interrelated, and I'd like to talk about them. So when you replace a task of a human being with an AI agent, or you replace teams with an AI agent, or you require humans to interact with an AI agent, you have to manage that AI agent as what is called a non-human identity. Now, already, non-human identities outnumber human identities in an organization. And traditionally, software for human identity management has been completely separate from software for non-human identity management. And now that's going to have to merge. And there are several challenges with AI agents that affect cybersecurity, privacy, and intellectual property. Number one, if you have thousands, tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of AI agents working in your company and perhaps interacting with external AI agents, you don't always know if that agent has too much authority to access resources they should not have access to. That's one of the number one problems of AI agents. They have access to databases and data that in theory they should not have access to. And that's often a problem of data classification. So if you have poor data governance and you have not classified your data by levels of sensitivity, then you're going to have that problem. Number two, um, you don't always know if your AI agents have been properly configured for cybersecurity purposes. Are you maintaining software patches for your AI agents? So all the cybersecurity and privacy risks that arise with any form of AI, so the technology infrastructure for AI is going to multiply in the world of AI agents. And then every individual AI agent it's going to be working in a software as a service environment. And how are you going to verify that your tens of thousands of AI agents are respecting relevant privacy and cybersecurity protocols? I think one of the biggest intellectual property issues is trade secrets. Trade secret law is actually quite complex. Let's talk about what a trade secret is. Your proprietary software code is a trade secret. Your list of customers is a trade secret. The capabilities of your products are a trade secret that you don't, it's any secret you don't want your competition to find out about so they can reproduce it. Well, we've actually had both accidental and purposeful exposure of trade secrets. In order for trade secret protection to apply, businesses have to do several things. Number one, they have to identify what a trade secret is. They have to label that trade secret. This is a trade secret. You have to show proactive steps to protect that trade secret. For example, you should be training your employees about the protection of trade secrets, how to handle trade secrets. You should maintain a record of that training and updating that training. When there is a leakage of a trade secret, there should be training to rectify what caused that leakage of the trade secret and employee discipline if that's needed, if it was deliberate, that needs to be documented as well, so that if you ever have an investigation from a regulatory agency or you're in litigation in the court system, you need to be able to prove that you proactively protected that trade secret. Well, there have been some interesting instances of the exposure of trade secrets. So as businesses demand ever greater productivity from human employees will have a greater motivation to use AI to speed up work. And one of the things that happened with the global mobile device manufacturer, is that the software engineers needed to debug code. The software engineers went into a publicly available large language model and asked the large language model to debug the code. That code was a trade secret, and that trade secret became training material for that large language model. And that was an inadvertent, accidental exposure of a trade secret. AI agents that have too much authority, too much agency, well, they're going to run the risk of exposing trade secrets. So you're going to need to think very, very carefully about your governance. I would like to note that the Bonner Institute has developed programs that address these issues. We have developed both an in-person and a digital program called Responsible AI for boards and corporate officers. And the premise of that program is that organizations that merge the principles of responsible and trustworthy AI on the foundation of purposeful leadership and inculcate the attributes of purposeful leaders, at least at their board of director level and their corporate officer level, are going to have or achieve greater long-term sustainable value in their AI programs. And I'd like to conclude here. James, any thoughts? I always can talk a lot because I get excited about these topics, but I'll be quiet for a while.
No, John. You're, I mentioned earlier I spoke about humility with regard to a purposeful leader, and you certainly exemplify that both as a purposeful leader and as the characteristic of humility. And but there, I would think that you're overdoing it. What you shared is, I will go absolutely with what David said, is absolutely riveting and important. Important because it's our new reality. And I do have one question, and then I'd just like to finish perhaps and speak about our value proposition. But when you were talking about, um, help me.
Cybernetic teammate.
Thank you. When we're talking about cybernetic teammates, uh, is this the future?
Well, it certainly looks like it. You know,
My thought.
it's certainly so let's just discuss some of the pressures that are available. So look at Apple, the company Apple. Shareholders and Wall Street are heavily criticizing Apple because there's the perception that it is behind in AI.
Yeah.
Now, I personally have a different impression. I'm actually a fan of Apple products. I believe that over the long term, they're actually going to have superior AI services because they invest much more in user experience and different company cultures. If you remember when Alphabet, the owner of Google, the very first time it did a shareholder presentation about AI, the AI dramatically failed during the demonstration and it wiped off billions of dollars in capitalization of Alphabet's share price. And I think that those two dramatic scenarios exemplify different approaches. I believe Apple is much more purposeful and careful and thinks more in the long term. And whereas I certainly have the impression that Alphabet is, well, we just have to get something out the door very quickly. Those are dramatically different situations. And so this is where is it the future? Well, it's going to depend on your organization's mission, vision, values. What do customers need? And how do you see the future? Your competitive situation, the legal and regulatory environment. So, for example, if you are in financial services or healthcare, there still are areas or ways that you're not allowed to use AI, and
Right.
or you're going to have to govern it differently. Dave, I see you have a question now, so I'd like to make sure you get your question.
Thank you. Yeah, you actually about 10 minutes ago raised the possibility of raised a situation where a company has, for example, let's say it's Moderna, thousands of AI agents, all interacting, all with access to proprietary, trade secret data,
Yeah.
maybe financial data, and company management suddenly goes, "Gosh, we have no idea how those agents are using that data." By almost my reaction is that's a definition of a board that has lost control of the company. That
Mm-hmm.
has no way of getting that control back. Am I right, or might there be another possibility?
Well, it's certainly a risk. So it depends on. So actually, I actually present at cybersecurity conferences very frequently. RSA, InfoSec World, ISC2. These are the topics that I address. Um, the sad reality is the data show that the majority of AI projects that are being deployed right now are either failing or they're failing completely or they're failing to deliver on their ROI. And but what we also know is that there are best practices. There is an AI development life cycle. We have best practices for AI governance, and we have the in the United States, we have the National Institutes of Standards and Technology, the AI Risk Management Framework. We have several ISO standards, ISO 42,000, I think it's 42,001, several others. We have the European Union Artificial Intelligence Act, the Global Data Protection Regulation. From Canada, Canada was a pioneer in the concept of privacy by design. So bluntly, AI is dependent on data. And the first best practice is to classify your data, know your business case, know the data that you need to feed your AI solution. You need a multidisciplinary stakeholder team on the governance panel. And those are your necessary success conditions. You need auditing and monitoring and testing, continuous monitoring and auditing of your AI systems. And you're going to have to set that up before you develop any line of software code, quite frankly. So there is a way that you can increase your chances of success. But I have to say bluntly, yes, I believe if you continue having proliferation of AI agents, and who in your organization is authorized to create a new agent? Who in your organization has the ability to monitor an agent and say, this agent has access to data it should not have access to? So it's going to require very careful preparation. David, I did want to let you know I put in the chat feature a link to our Responsible AI for Purposeful Boards in the C-Suite program.
Yep.
That's a digital program. I created that program myself, but we do have in-person programs as well. So
I have a subsequent question along those
yeah,
lines, though. From a board perspective, and when I'm speaking about a board, I'm speaking about a board of a mid-sized to large-sized company.
yes.
So from that perspective, what should the board expect, direct its HR function to do regarding the growth, the increasing growth of AI within the organization? And there's a B to that, and I'm sorry for the embedded question,
It's okay.
but the B is, and what should it hold the HR function accountable for?
Well, oh, you raised many very interesting
No.
questions. Well, number one, I think one of the challenges of small and mid-sized businesses is they don't have a board of directors.
Yes.
They have, so that's number one. So,
That's why I said mid or large.
and very interesting, a lot of legal systems, and this is my area of study, most state laws in the United States
Mhm.
require a board of trustees for a nonprofit organization that is small, but they don't have a statutory requirement for a board for a privately held company.
Right.
But number one, my recommendation is behave as if you are at least partially a publicly held company and focus on good governance. Learn the best practices of a board of directors and set up good governance processes. That's number one. And there are many ways to get the knowledge for that. Number two, and this is, the program we have, Responsible AI for Purposeful Boards and the
Yeah.
C-suite. Indeed, um, you you as a board at some point have to say, hey, what AI is occurring in our industry, number one. And so the board is going to have oversight of human resources and the digital workforce, and they're just going to have to embark on getting knowledge of AI. And so for example, there are a lot of free and low cost courses available to become familiar with AI. Some boards are hiring, outside organizations to come in and do the training, to increase knowledge, and you just have to interact. I actually have presented to lots of chief human resources officers. Now, here's what's very, very interesting. The legal and regulatory system has been set up for human resources.
Mhm.
And um, and the legal and regulatory system is still viewing AI like a software or a software product. So we have uneven uneven enforcement. Is AI a product or a service? Product liability, warranties and representations, indemnification, tort liability. So the legal system is a little bit different. So the legal system is going to have to catch up. And this is why the principles of responsible and trustworthy AI plus
Mhm.
purposeful leadership
Mhm.
and in alignment with your corporate mission, vision, values, and your code of ethics. The legal and regulatory system has not caught up with the realities of AI, and it's never going to be able to. All the frameworks and laws and regulations, they have to kind of be AI technology agnostic because it's evolving so quickly. So this is where, like my law firm, when a business comes to us and says, "Hey, we're gonna introduce AI into our work processes," um, what's the least amount of legal work we need to do in order to make us compliant? And we say, try to be compliant with the highest legal standard. And that's probably the EU AI Act, even if it doesn't apply to you in the United States, go to the highest standard because right now we're in a period of uncertainty. And I think HR is in this position. I think what Moderna did, and Moderna is having to do more than just merge IT and HR. They're having to literally break down the tasks that have to be performed in the organization. You don't think, oh, I've got a full-time employee doing this work. I'm just going to replace that employee with an AI agent. It doesn't work like that. It's not a one-to-one substitute. You're going to have to say, what are the tasks that have to be performed for our mission to succeed, for our financial goals to be actualized, for us to manage risk. And you're going to have to constantly remap that because AI will evolve and improve over time or degrade over time, and you're going to have to reconfigure again. So it'll be radically different.
Would you consider that something you had addressed earlier about AI and all the agents, AI agents out there, and there, in some instances, thousands within a company, and to Dave's point, some of them having access to confidential information, and so on. Where does accountability come in? I know that some companies will have a layered effect insofar as multi-agent systems. And so they'll have, let's say, one group of agents who are responsible for X level. Then another group above it will almost be a sort of a superior or supervisor. They'll check on that. And there's another group above that. Is that something that you would think conceptually that the board may ask of the HR function, not to get into the details, but how would they address that kind of question that the board or that the HR function might come up and say, well, this is what we're working on, this sort of thing, or am I just
Well, I think
extrapolating too far?
it's very difficult to take to get outside our present paradigm, but actually we're going to have to jump out of
Absolutely.
our present paradigm and think completely differently. And
Yeah,
you might have an AI agent on your board or assisting your board. In fact, the
that's it.
training program I created discussed specific opportunities for boards to leverage AI
That's
agents.
it.
We're and I think one of the biggest issues is over dependence on a vendor, over dependence on AI. You know, if you terminate the majority of your human workforce and your business is now dependent on AI, and suddenly the nuclear power plant powering it goes down and there's no energy, you're out of business. So you're going to have to think, you can't just think, hey, I'm
So,
going to bring in AI and substitute.
so what you're saying, John, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
it's okay. Yeah.
Okay. Well, what I'm hearing you say is that really what a board should, from the point of view of HR, is to consider, well, what is the role of AI? What is the role of the human?
Yeah.
Some companies are using AI as a productivity tool. So they're firing people, they're replacing them with AI and what have you.
Right.
Cost savings tool, productivity.
Right.
Others, though, yes, the jobs that were once done by humans are being done by AI, but then
Yeah.
they're repurposing the
Yeah.
humans to do other
Yeah.
things. That's where the new roles or the
Yeah.
reskilling of employees is coming in.
Yeah.
So might that not be? And you're talking about we companies will have to change and boards will have to change their thinking about how things are done. Well, you were talking about Moderna. Is that not what Moderna did? By saying
Yes.
HR is no longer going to be HR only. IT is not going to be only IT
Yeah.
only.
That's
It's going to
right.
be
That's
one.
right.
And there may be two branches. One is the human workforce. The other branch is the IT workforce. How will they work? Will they work together or will they work separately?
All of the above. And
Exactly.
and here's something else we have to remember. And I did put a link in about Klarna getting thinking it could replace
Yeah.
700 workers with AI, and it was a failure, although the CEO does not want to admit it. But they've had to rehire a lot of people. I think one of the most important principles to remember is that AI is not like Microsoft Word or
Yeah.
PowerPoint. So like Word and PowerPoint, you get an upgrade maybe once a year, once every 2 years. Well, AI can change multiple times a day,
Yeah.
and we don't have full control over it. And over six, so in other words, uh, let's say I do that board function and I merge my IT and HR department and I've replaced 40% of my workforce with agents. And the agent technology has ingested new synthetic data. It's been ingesting the decisions of my human employees and all of the decisions in my spreadsheets and emails and Word documents. And so 6 months later, the AI agents might have improved, they might have degraded, they might not be fit for purpose. There will need to be a reconfiguration. And
Yeah.
this, I think, is just sort of a new always on enterprise. And it's very difficult to analyze it because our paradigm is humans interacting with software and humans being in control of software, humans adapting to software. And I think, it's going to require human adaptation to software. We're actually a little bit over now, and so we'll have
No,
to stop soon, but
John, I'm going to play your role if I may,
sure.
because you generally are the one who thanks the speaker. And I would absolutely like to thank you for the depth, the breadth, and the insights you provided today. They were and are outstanding. And for you, Dave, just because you may not know, John mentioned it, but John really is the AI guru of the Institute. And he did and is not only the creator, but the lead for all of our AI programs. And the last program that he created has been certified by the Good Governance Academy. And I'd love to say that it's the institute. It is, but the institute in this case is John.
Mhm.
So I just want to share that and to offer John uh, my thanks, and if you don't mind, Dave, and everybody else who's going to be listening, our thanks for a wonderful, wonderful presentation.